Good evening, Thousand Oaks. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for March 16th, 2020. Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, just real quickly, as you can see, we're trying to honor everything going on right now with regard to the virus. I think, actually, looking back, we've had 3 meetings this year. One was the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash, and now we're dealing with this. It's an eventful time, but you'll see that we are maintaining our distance from each other. We'd ask that those in the audience do as well. I'd also indicate that the podium and the microphone have all been washed down. Please, if you do come to the podium, do not touch the mic. Try not to touch anything except the stuff you brought. If you do, please do not touch your face, and please go try to wash your hands as soon as you're done. And we'll all try to make sure that we stay as safe as we can. With that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Commissioner Buss, absent. Commissioner Cohan?
Here.
Commissioner Lanson?
Here.
Commissioner Newman?
Here.
Commissioner McMahon, and I'm sorry, that's Chair Lanson. And Commissioner McMahon?
Here.
I go by anything. It's okay. I think Mr. Parker is not with us tonight, so I guess I don't know if I'm asking Mr. Kearns with regard to any written comments, announcements, or supplemental packets.
Thank you, Chair. We had received 2 supplemental packets. They were sent out by the email this morning and this afternoon to all the commissioners. There's also a hard copy on the dais as well as at the welcome desk. Both relate to item 7A.
We're moving on to item 5. I don't have any public comment cards, to my knowledge. Is that true, Ms. Clerk?
No.
All right. So we move on to the consent calendar, item 6. Was there something, Madam Clerk, you wanted to mention?
Yes, staff has a change to the approval of the February 24th minutes. Commissioner McMahon made the motion to approve the previous minutes.
So in place of Commissioner X, we'll put Commissioner McMahon. With that change, is there any other comments from commissioners, or do I have a motion? Commissioner Newman?
Thank you, Chair. I move that we accept the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of February 24th, 2020.
Any other comments? With that, Madam Clerk, please prepare us for a vote.
And Commissioner Cohan, yours will be a verbal vote this evening? Okay. Motion carries 4-0.
So I don't think any of us actually pushed a button.
Oh, it didn't. Oh.
We can do a verbal hand vote if you'd like.
Okay. Commissioner Newman? Okay. Chair Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohan?
Aye.
And Commissioner McMahon?
Aye.
Thank you.
That'll take us to item 7. Madam Clerk, could you please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is open to consider agenda item 7A, case numbers Precise Plan of Design PPD 2013-70085, Oak Tree Permit number OTP 2013-70276, Landmark Tree Permit number LTP 2014-70170, and Underground Utility Waiver number UUW 2020-70076 to allow encroachment into natural sloping terrain greater than 25% gradient, encroachment within the protected zones of 8 oak trees and 2 black walnut trees, and waiver of requirement to underground existing overhead utilities to accommodate, number 1, construction of a 2-story single-family dwelling with attached garage, number 2, installation of a culvert for driveway access to the site, and number 3, associated grading activities, hardscape, and landscape. Located at 21 Lacam Road, the applicant is Ramin N. Kodadati.
Thank you. And I think we have Senior Planner Carlos Contreras for our report.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The project before you tonight is a request to construct a new single-family residence at 21 Lacam Road by applicant Mr. Ramin Kodadati. The proposed project is a request to construct a 2-story single-family residence that includes the installation of a drainage culvert for driveway access to the site and also incorporates new walls, hardscape, and landscape. The proposed project includes grading into slopes over 25%, encroachment into oak trees and black walnut trees, and also a request to waive the requirement to underground utilities for the proposed residence. The project is before the Planning Commission here tonight because the associated proposed scope of work includes grading into slopes over 25%. Since the Planning Commission is reviewing the project for development on steep slopes, all other associated applications for the proposed project will be for consideration for the Planning Commission. This includes the oak tree permit, landmark tree permit, underground utility waiver, and the PPD for the construction of the single-family residence. Here's the vicinity map of the subject site. It is located within the western portion of the city, within the Newberry Park area. The proposed residence will be located approximately 1,600 feet south of Lynn Road, as demonstrated here. With regards to the project site itself, the proposed project subject property is 2.65 acres in area. It is zoned rural exclusive 2-acre minimum lot size, which allows for the construction of a single-family residence. The site is characterized predominantly by steep sloping terrain and natural hillsides. The subject property consists of 89% of steep slopes over 25%. The majority of the property contains steep slopes. The property supports 41 oak trees and 4 black walnut trees, and there is a drainage course that runs parallel to LeCam Road within the northeastern portion of the property. The area here in red demonstrates the location of the subject property along LeCam Road. Here's an aerial photograph that demonstrates the lay of the land to get a better understanding of the site's topography. Along the eastern portion of the site, you have LeCam Road, and then the property descends by the drainage course, and then it has a steep slope ascending towards the area where the proposed building pad would be for the residence. Beyond that, you have the existing slope that ascends towards the ridgeline there. And then you have existing single-family residential development immediately to the north of the subject property. This is, again, intended to demonstrate the lay of the land for the proposed single-family residence. With regards to the project details, staff does want to clarify one thing that wasn't appropriately indicated on the staff report. The main residence itself, outside of the, it consists only of the main habitable areas. It's 5,099 square feet, 3,662 square feet for the first floor, 1,437 square feet for the second floor. However, there is a 500 square foot garage attached to the house, and there is also a 708 square foot recreation room. The total building area then is 6,307 square feet for the entire structure. Associated development for the single-family residence includes grading, hardscape, landscape retaining walls, a drainage culvert for driveway access, and new utilities for the residence. And as previously mentioned, there will be some encroachments into oak trees, specifically 8 oak trees and 2 walnut trees that will be encroached upon as a result of the proposed development. Here's the site plan of the proposed project. You have LeCam Road on the eastern portion of the property. In the green here, you have the driveway access with proposed drainage culvert below. The blue dashed line demonstrates the drainage course that's existing along LeCam Road. Beyond that, you have the meandering driveway access that's in yellow that leads towards the fire department turnaround. From that point on, towards the west of the property, you have the proposed residence there. The residence would provide for a 50-foot building setback from the property line to the north, and a 100-foot setback from the existing residence immediately to the north of the subject site. There is a proposed retaining wall behind the property, immediately adjacent to and north of the proposed residence, indicated here in the dashed red. Here is a photograph of the subject property. Actually, I'm sorry. If you don't mind, I need to make a quick pause for the presentation. It appears that the latest PowerPoint wasn't updated on here.
So do we need to take a 5-minute break? Okay. I would note quickly while they're doing that, for all of those that will be in attendance tomorrow for the city council meeting, the staff has done a good job of putting out placeholders indicating how far people should sit apart to maintain the social distancing part of this process. It's important at this point that we maintain those distinctions. Right now, according to VC Emergency, I believe there's only one actual reported case of the virus. There's a few that I think are still being evaluated by CDC, but it's important that we maintain those distances. Go ahead.
Sorry about that delay. Just the latest iteration of the PowerPoint wasn't on there. But anyways, we'll continue on. Here's a photograph of the subject property. On the left-hand side, you see it's from LeCam Road towards the southwestern portion of the property. You have the drainage course there, and to the southwest, you have where the proposed residence will be located. Immediately to the north of the proposed residence, you have the existing single-family home that's to the north of the subject site. On the right-hand side, you have a photograph of LeCam Road facing towards the south, towards the hillside area there, into the county. Here's a photograph of the subject site, looking at the property where the proposed residence will be located from LeCam Road, facing towards the west. Here's an exhibit demonstrating the existing drainage along LeCam Road. The exhibit on the left-hand side demonstrates in the blue arrows an access road for the property to the north. As you go down this access road from LeCam Road, you have an existing drainage culvert with a drainage device that's demonstrated here on the right-hand side on this exhibit. This is important because the proposed residence on 21 LeCam Road would be designing a driveway access road with the drainage culvert below, similar to this. However, because the topography ascends from this area over to Mr. Cotodati's property, you're going to have a slightly elevated driveway access with a drainage culvert below that. But this is to give you an understanding of the similar design for the proposed residence for Mr. Cotodati. With regards to the encroachments into slopes over 25%, 89% of the total site area is characterized by slopes over 25%, which is the majority of the property. 52% of the total property will be disturbed for the proposed residence. Of that 52% of that area to be disturbed, 91% is characterized by slopes over 25%. The map on the right-hand side here, this exhibit demonstrates in green those areas that are below 25% gradient, which again, it's primarily where the oak trees exist and where the proposed residence won't be located. With regards to natural open space, since 52% of the site will be disturbed for the proposed residence, 48% of the site will remain in a natural condition. We also added a condition of approval to the project that requires that the applicant submit for a major modification in the event that they decide to grade beyond the approved limits here under this proposed development today. Here's a exhibit of the grading proposed on the subject property. The area in red demonstrates the cut that's going to go into the hillside. When the applicant and their engineering team do the cut for the proposed pad, that soil has to go elsewhere on the property for recompaction. They will be utilizing that earth for recompaction for the driveway access and the manufactured slopes demonstrated here in green. Because we're trying to limit the amount of recompaction that goes on, and we try to maintain the natural terrain as much as possible, there will be 4,300 cubic yards approximately of export, which comes out to be about 300 truck trips for the export of the soil. Here's the floor plan of the proposed residence. On the left-hand side, you have the 3-car garage. And on the right-hand side, directly above that, you have the first floor level that includes the master bedroom, a master bathroom, the living room, kitchen, family room, etc. Here's a floor plan of the second floor. Here's a way to illustrate the total area of the second floor in comparison to the first floor area. The first floor totals approximately 40% of the first floor area. This is a design mechanism to reduce the massing of the proposed building, so you don't have a box that's sitting on the hillside area there. It's a way to reduce the massing of the second floor to break up the building and provide for more articulation and reduce visual impacts from surrounding properties and adjacent properties. With regards to the protected trees, as previously mentioned, the site supports 41 coastline oak trees. Of those 41 trees, 8 oak trees will be impacted by the proposed development. I indicated here in the circles in green those trees that will be encroached upon by the retaining walls for the driveway access with drainage culvert, and in yellow, the proposed driveway, and also the grading associated with the driveway and manufactured slopes. The dashed lines in blue indicate the 2 walnut trees that will be encroached upon by the proposed development of the residents. With regards to the undergrounding of utilities and the waiver, the municipal code requires that any proposed development, the applicant to underground utilities near the subject property. Because of the site's topography and the constraints on the property, it's a cost prohibitive issue for the applicant. And there are other waivers that have been granted for custom homes similar to this one. This map here, the exhibit on the right-hand side, demonstrates the existing power pole that's along LeCam Road. You have multiple power poles existing along LeCam Road. The blue dashed line indicates the extension of existing overhead lines that will go that are already existing there from LeCam Road to the power pole that's immediately adjacent to the proposed house that's existing to the north. From there, they would go underground to the proposed residence. No new power poles are proposed. No new overhead utility lines are proposed. Strictly a waiver of that requirement to underground all utilities and go underground from the existing power pole to the proposed residence. With regards to the weed abatement and offsite brush clearance, in order to meet Ventura County Fire Department requirements, the proposed residence would have to clear 100 feet of brush from the proposed structure. Because the residence is located closer to the western property line, there will be some offsite weed abatement. There are conditions of approval associated with the proposed project that require that the applicant secure offsite easements from the adjacent property owner in order to conduct such offsite weed abatement for the proposed residence. With regards to the elevation, because this is a hillside project and with steep topography, the applicant has designed the residence in a manner that would reduce and minimize visual impacts to surrounding and adjacent properties. How they achieved this was by providing for roofline variation, pitched roof that would transition easily to the the ascending slope beyond the house that's at a higher elevation. Reduce the second story massing to only 40% of the total first floor area. Provide for facade articulation and enhanced building materials, which include stone veneer, stucco, and enhanced decorative trim on the windows. With regards to the project's compatibility with surrounding properties, here's a table indicating the size of the homes along LeCam Road. Staff went ahead and evaluated the surrounding properties to see the total size of homes in the surrounding area. We took LeCam Road, and you get properties or single-family residences 1 to 2 stories from as low as 1,983 square feet to as high as 5,029 square feet. This information was obtained from Ventura County assessors, which includes the habitable area for the residents and also the attached or detached garage. With regards to the landscaping, this is a conceptual landscape plan that has been provided by the applicant. Because there are manufactured slopes associated with this proposed project, the applicant will be required to implement ground cover, brush, and also tree clusters in order to minimize visual impacts from the manufactured slopes. The applicant is also considering providing additional landscaping, additional trees in the area between the existing residence to the north and the proposed residence in order to create a more a minimized impact on visibility and creating a buffer there. The applicant can propose including pepper trees or any other kind of trees that they would like, as long as they meet the city's requirements for water efficient landscaping. With regards to CEQA, the project is considered exempt from the CEQA review 15303 A and E for new construction, in that it's a single family residence that's on residentially zoned property that allows for associated accessory development. Staff has verified that none of the 6 exceptions apply to this category exemption, so staff is moving forward with the category exemption. for environmental review. With that being said, the project has been reviewed for compliance for development on property with terrain over 25%. Staff recommends approval of and supports this proposed design in that the applicant has designed this proposed residence and development on the subject area, limiting the amount of development on 25% or steeper terrain. The location of the proposed residence minimizes impacts to landform alterations. The design minimizes visual impacts to adjacent and surrounding properties because of the design. The massing and the scale of the building has been reduced in order to minimize those impacts. The design meets the residential development standards with regards to setbacks, yards, height, etc. And the proposed project, the impacts to the oak and landmark trees will not have a detrimental effect on the trees as designed. Staff would like to mention that that we did receive correspondence from the adjacent property owner to the north. The adjacent property owner did indicate that they had an issue or concerns with the location of the proposed building as designed. They would like the building to be relocated on the subject site closer to LeCam Road because of their view impacts, apparently. Staff did indicate that the applicant has designed the project in a way that minimizes impacts to adjacent properties because placing the building further to the west on the property would be screened by the mature landscaping that's existing and be less visible from LeCam Road. The applicant also brought up comments regarding the project site's visibility from Lynn Road, which he considered a scenic, well, he mentioned that was a scenic road. Looking at the scenic highways element of the general plan, the Lynn Road is a scenic road. However, the scenic road ends at Kelly Road, at LeCam Road. So further to the east is where the scenic road is. Additionally to that, the property, the proposed residence is approximately 1,600 feet to the south of Lynn Road, so there is no visibility based on staff site assessment and site visit. With regards to landscape, the adjacent property owner also mentioned issues with landscaping. They'd like to see more landscaping between the proposed residence and their residence. And as I previously mentioned, the applicant is willing to provide for more trees in that area, given that there are some manufactured slopes in the area between the proposed residence and the existing residence. And finally, the adjacent property owner mentioned a request for a wall between the two properties. However, staff did mention that there are several oak trees on the property line, and if they did propose a new wall in that area, that there would be encroachments and impacts into those oak trees that haven't been assessed. And the applicant is not required to propose a wall along the north property line between the two properties. With that being said, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. Before we go to Commissioner comments, I just want to clarify from the comments you're making and also the packets that we have, all the comments that you just made with regard to a neighboring property owner, are those represented in what have been packet 2?
That is correct. We provided that to the planning commissioners via email. All those items have been addressed.
And I would note there's a front and back to the last page, commissioners, to look at. And then the second or first packet number 1 we got also indicates an adjoining property owner. Do you know where that property owner location is? Yeah,
the first supplemental packet you got is a letter of support from the property owner to the west, immediately adjacent to the west of the proposed project, Mr. Moshiri, I believe.
And aside from those two things, and obviously the cards we'll get to, did you receive any other comments from neighbors?
To date, no, staff has not received any other correspondence regarding the proposed project other than the property owner to the west and the property owner to the north.
Okay. Commissioner comments, questions? Mr. Commissioner Newman?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Contreras, for your very thorough report. You mentioned at the outset that we are here tonight because of the fact that there is grading of greater than 25% slope involved. Therefore, all the issues fall under Planning Commission review. My question is, would we be here if the grading were not an issue? We're also looking at encroachments, at undergrounding. There are other issues here as well. Would those also qualify for commission review?
Yes, so the project would be before the Planning Commission also if only encroachments into oak trees were to occur. Let's say the property did not have slopes over 25%. Let's say it was average slope of 20% and they encroach into oak trees of a certain size that couldn't be exempt from a permit. It would be before the Planning Commission tonight.
And what about the undergrounding? Would we also review that as well? Because we have had other undergrounding cases in the past.
If I could just clarify that comment. The only item that's triggering planning commission review is the 25% natural sloping terrain encroachment. The tree encroachments, you can process, or we can process administratively an indefinite number of tree encroachments. It's only when you remove more than 3 oak trees or landmark trees or one tree of that's 24 inches in diameter or larger that triggers planning commission. So in this case, all the other ancillary applications that are associated with the underlying PPD are only here because of the 25% slope encroachment.
Okay, great. Thanks for clearing up what the threshold would be. The staff report with regard to the grading indicates that a retaining wall will be built to hold the remaining soil in place. The height of that wall is variable from a minimum of 2 feet or something up to a maximum of 10 feet. And my question on that is, does the city code specify a maximum height for retaining walls?
There is a maximum height of retaining walls up to 6 feet when they are along the property lines and when they are along or located within required setbacks. Because these walls are outside of the required setbacks, they can have a height beyond 6 feet.
Okay, thank you. In your report, you also mentioned that a major, I'll ask this of the applicant as well, but you mentioned that a major modification permit would be needed for any additional grading. Why would there need to be any additional grading on the site after all the grading that's being done here?
What we did is we added a condition of approval for a applicant to execute a deed restriction to constrain their proposed development area to a certain limit. Staff doesn't know that if in years in the future, 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, they want to expand and add something else. Because the slopes are over 25%, the city's intent is to preserve the natural sloping terrain as much as possible. So staff added that condition in order to protect the natural sloping terrain, so that in effect, if they came here in a future date to add a accessory building outside of those limits, it'd be before the Planning Commission for review and consideration.
Okay. Thank you. My next question has to do with the tree encroachments. The applicant provided a tree consultant's report. I think you've already answered this in your conclusion slide. I was wondering if there's any impact from any of the encroachments on the survivability or the health of the trees. I think you answered that in the negative. Is that correct?
Yeah, what staff did is they got the latest iteration of the project plans and clearly identified the development area and the proposed driveway access. The majority of these landmark and oak trees are located within those areas, and staff obtained information from the applicant's tree consultant, demonstrated the limits of the protected zone of those trees, and then we provided that information over to the city's oak tree consultant, and to verify that, in fact, the proposed driveway and the associated grading wouldn't be detrimental to the it wouldn't be detrimental to the life of the oak trees that are existing on the project site.
Okay, great. And then my final question has to do with that consultant's report, and you mentioned the word iterations. There, at the very end of attachment 6, there are 2 different letters from the consultant, one dated from October, one from February, with different numbers of trees discussed. And the most recent iteration, this is page 85 of attachment 6.
Give me 1 second. I'm just getting to that page.
And it's the consultant's letter of February 13th of this year.
I'm there.
Okay, great. So first, I have a comment and a question on this. First, it appears that as you said, the degree of encroachment is not very high. There's one tree where it's 25% of the protected zone, and all the other trees is 15% or less. My question though is how we can reconcile the content of this letter with the content of the staff report. The number of trees is different. This letter discusses 9 oak trees, not 8, and there's no discussion of black walnut trees. And the staff report is talking about 8 oak trees and 2 black walnuts. So where are we at with this? Which is correct?
I have clarification for that. What staff did is, when staff provided the updated project plans to the tree consultant, we wanted to make sure that the plans reflected the true encroachments. The reason why you see 2 walnut trees added on here is that staff took a conservative approach on the project and identified the retaining walls within close proximity of the walnut trees. So we went ahead and made sure that we applied the landmark tree permit for the proposed project. The city's tree consultant then concurred with that assessment, and that is why we asked the applicant's consultant to update the letter and include the total number of trees to be encroached upon.
Okay. Well, two follow-up questions on that point. I get that the black walnut trees were added, and that's good and diligent scoping of the property. Question is, what percentage of the protected zones of those trees would be, of the black walnut trees, would be encroached upon? I don't see that in the February 13th letter from the consultant.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if the previous letter from the consultant identified that.
It did not. Both letters from the consultant identified only oak trees.
If I could just jump in here. We can have the oak tree or the tree consultant add the work methods and monitoring program for those trees as an addendum to the report after this meeting if we choose to go forward with this project. Again, an indefinite number of trees can be authorized, encroachment can be authorized by staff. We can look at this and make sure that those methods and monitoring programs are in place to ensure the health and success of those trees with the proposed work.
Is there a threshold, though? Is there a maximum amount of encroachment you would allow, or is it decided on a case-by-case basis?
Generally, it's a case-by-case. We look at about 20% maximum encroachment. Normally, that's our resolution standard, but we do look at it on a case-by-case and the impacts on the tree.
Right. So in the case in here, staff is recommending approval in one case of a 25% encroachment.
Correct.
But your judgment is in that case that's acceptable.
Yeah, based on its tree location and the work methods.
Right. Okay, so Mr. Contreras, then I think Mr. Kearns has answered my question with regard to the walnut trees. Now let's come back to the oak trees for a moment. The more recent letter from the applicant consultant identifies 9 oak trees, and the staff report is talking about 8. So how many oak trees are being encroached here?
Staff did have a discussion with the city's tree consultant, and under the addendum, it identified 9 trees, but the tree consultant identified only 8 to be encroached upon, which is why we went with the 8 and not the 9. So,
I'm sorry, I count 9 in the applicant's consultant's letter.
yeah, the applicant's consultant said 9, but our city's tree consultant verified and said only 8 will be encroached upon. So that's why we went with 8 and not with 9.
Okay.
Because I think the applicant's consultant identified 9 trees, thinking that the 9th tree would be encroached upon. But then, as I reviewed this with our city's tree consultant, I went ahead and talked to the consultant and verified that only 8 trees will be encroached upon as a result of the proposed development. Which is why I went with 8.
One of the and again, I'll follow up with the applicant, but one of the trees, one of the 9 trees specified by the consultant, you're saying will not be encroached upon.
That is correct, and that's after verification with the city's tree consultant.
I understand. Thank you. Thanks very much. Nothing further.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. One question I had was regarding the HOA. Is there a HOA in this community?
There is no HOA that staff is aware of. Staff did, the applicant can speak to that question, but staff verifies that the project does comply with all the city's code standards and policies, and if the applicant were to be approved tonight, they would still have to get their HOA approval.
Great. Next question was regarding the culvert in the drainage area. Would that require the city to contact Army Corps or CDFW jurisdiction? Is that within their jurisdiction?
Not at this time. According to the addendum to the bioassessment, the applicant's biologist identified that as an existing drainage course that's already improved. As I demonstrated in those photographs previously, immediately to the north, you have existing drainage devices and a drainage culvert. This is no different than that, and that is why I did not trigger Army Corps of Engineers to review the project, because it's classified as a existing drainage course according to the bio assessment.
Great. And then lastly, there was a discussion about the number of truck trips, equivalent to about 300 truck trips. Were those trucks going to be staged on site? And where would they be dumping the soil?
Yeah, the applicant's engineer is here tonight, and he will be able to speak on the construction and staging management plan that they provided to staff. It is staff's understanding that they will be staging on the subject property, that they are looking to phase their construction on the property, which would include construction of the culvert with driveway access first to be able to gain access to the remaining portions of the property. Mm-hmm. And staff did work with Public Works for conditions of approval associated with the proposed grading and construction and pre-construction meetings for the proposed development.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes, I did have a question about the culvert. The culvert is under the driveway, and its direction is parallel to LaCam. Is that correct?
That is correct. Since that drainage course just runs parallel to LaCam Road, the applicant is proposing that culvert with the driveway access above, immediately adjacent to LaCam Road, in alignment with the existing drainage devices and culverts that are immediately to the north of the subject property.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
The great thing about being chair is you get all your commissioners to ask the great questions, and I get left with a few fun ones. One thing I noticed was that there was an indication that at some point Casca is going to have a trailhead that starts near, is it near the driveway?
Yeah, there's a future trail that's supposed to be located along the frontage of the property down LaCam Road. And so Casca requested that the applicant, as a condition of approval, provide an easement for the future trail improvement. And when that time comes, that easement will be secured so that Casca could, in fact, improve a trail there.
Is the trail going to start there?
No, that's just the alignment of the trail. I believe the trail comes off of Lynn Road, and it goes towards the subject property, and then it goes east towards the county area.
So we're not looking for a whole bunch of cars looking to park right in this area to begin a trail. That'll come from Lynn Road.
That is correct. This is only an easement for the trail alignment itself.
Second issue was the power pole that I saw. I understand the waiver argument. Is the power pole going to need any kind of modification, improvement to handle the additional capacity?
The applicant will be working directly with Southern California Edison on any improvements for the proposed pole. I know the applicant went ahead and started coordinating with Edison's planners on the location of the undergrounding of utilities. Perhaps the applicant has more information and more detail beyond just the cost of undergrounding that they would be able to clarify for you tonight what they are required to do for the connectivity of power to the existing pole.
Another question I had was the square footage. The rec room is part of the house. It's not a separate unit, correct?
That is correct. The rec room is part of the main residence. It's in fact on the first floor. The way the project plans demonstrate the habitable areas, it's showing that it's just not part of the habitable portions of the residence, but it is on the first floor area, and it is attached to the structure. There are no detached structures proposed with this project.
Okay, and that rec room isn't going to require any additional structural issues aside from what you've included in the report, correct?
That is correct. Nothing different.
Okay, any other questions, comments from commissioners? I think we'll hold you in abeyance and come back to you. This point, we're going to have the applicant come up, Mr. Kodati, and all of the people that you have as part of your presentation. You'll have 15 minutes. Please come to the podium, state your name, city of residence for the record, please. And again, don't touch anything if you can avoid it. Oh, go for it.
Hi, my name is Ramin Kodadadi, and I'm the applicant, and I'm a resident of City of Thousand Oaks. And I just wanted to thank Mr. Chairman, all the members of the Planning Commission, city planners, Public Works, and staff, and my engineers and my team for being here at such a difficult time. I know it was hard to come and attend this after everything we've been going through. So on behalf of me, my wife and kids, I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to build our family home in Thousand Oaks. This is a great community. I'm a dentist. I've been practicing here for over 15 years. And I've been serving, volunteering in the community, and supporting our schools, and we just can't wait to have our dream home here, so finally. And as Mr. Contreras mentioned, there was not too much of a detail about the original design of the house. We had a different format, different design, and they were back to the oak tree questions. There were 8 removals, a lot of impact on the trees from the original, so we had to hire our great new engineer to redesign the whole thing. And the whole purpose was we wanted to preserve all the trees, the landmark trees. We knew we had some black walnuts on the property, and me and my wife and kids, we always walk the property. It's really, really nice. It's such a beautiful landscape. So we wanted to preserve everything with the new design. So that was the effort that we put in to make sure that we preserve the natural beauty of the land. So I know you asked questions about HOA, so there is no HOA. It's just a single-family residence. It will have a private gate, and there is no HOA involved. And regarding to the drainage course, I know you had a concern about the drainage course. One thing that wasn't mentioned, that the existing device and the drainage that's there is actually in my property, because the property to my north has an easement to run part of the driveway over that drainage course and the culvert. So most of it is actually located already in my property. So this would be a continuation of the same drainage course. And I don't know if you have any other questions. I forgot I made some notes. Any questions for me?
I think we'll get that. I didn't know if you wanted to have anybody else as part of your presentation make comments.
No, I just wanted to thank you and say, if approved, we accept all the conditions from the Planning Commission. We're really excited, to finally have our dream home, like I said, and wanted to thank everyone for being here in such a situation right now, and, say that hopefully can stay safe, healthy, and look forward to a brighter future, healthy for all of us. Thank you so much.
Let me see if there's commissioner questions. Commissioner Newman?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kodadati, for your application and for bringing your family tonight.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick questions. One has to do with the Costco easement that will be granted. I realize there's boilerplate language in the application that says that requires you to accept all the conditions of the application, but just verbally, if you could say that you're fine, you're okay with the...
Absolutely, yes, we accept. We knew about the trail, and we discussed it with Mr. Contreras, and, I requested a copy of the staff report about a week ago, and our planners were nice enough to give me a report, so a draft report, so I can review, and it was in there. We discussed it, and it will be totally fine. Like I said, our whole goal was to preserve the natural beauty of the land. So, of course, the natural trail is part of it, and hopefully we'll be using it. So, we want to make sure that that's preserved, yes.
Great. I hope it will be. And then again, speaking of the natural beauty of the land, there is a substantial amount of rearranging and grading and export of fill in this project, up to a limit. I mean, so much so that the city imposed a limit and further required a major modification permit for anything further. That's a good safeguard, but to avoid us coming back in some amount of time, let me ask the same question I asked to staff, which is, in the near future, or the near to midterm, let's say, do you envision any major modification of the property?
Absolutely not. I think we have been designing this for a long time. When you have a dream house, you design this just the way you want. So I think we have thought it through, and we have everything we want in the house, and I don't see anything that's missing. If you look at the plans for the house, there's space for everybody, and we have, I think, plenty of room, and even have extra room for my in-laws in the future if they want to move in. So I don't foresee that at all.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. Kodadati.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? I just had a quick one
Yes.
before you run off. The power pole.
Yes.
Is what kind of modifications, if any, do you believe were going to be necessary?
We contacted Edison. It's really difficult right now, just because of the amount of construction that's been going on in the past, year, and they've been very busy. But I think that, and what they want to do is possibly upgrade the transformer. The property below me on the north has an overhead power panel, so they're using that transformer. So I think it comes down to, we have to get some details of exactly how many amps the future panel is going to require, and then at that point they will decide if they're going to upgrade the transformer, but that will be the extent of the work.
I have two speaker cards. I just want to make sure they're with you, so to speak, as part of your process.
Yes.
Mr. Kang and Mr. Doss.
Yes.
Is there anything individually they wanted to add above and beyond whatever you've said?
Unless you have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for?
Oh, actually, yeah, just a couple things that was mentioned, but
You want to go ahead?
the applicant, my client, and
By the way, just say your name and city of residence.
I'm sorry. My name is Ken Kang. We're the architecture representative design group for the applicant, Mr. Kodadati. And the planner and the applicant gave really good information on this, so I'm not going to cover that. But the only thing that I want to cover is that the client is actually going to go with what the drawing is. I know that's a concern too, and he made a commitment to do that. Also, because of the where it's at, the fire zones and all of that, we're making even the exterior materials fire-resistant materials, and so it's not just regular materials for all of that also. And the location, when we designed it, he did take a lot of time. We considered the neighbors, the site, the elevations, the buffering, and stuff like that. So we suggested, he's willing to even put more landscaping, vertical gardens if you have to, and stuff like that, if you can't put trees and stuff like that. And that's a good, nice way to create a little garden space, have a buffer. And so he already has very good, interesting ways to complement those things, concerns that the neighbors and you guys have. And that's all I wanted to add. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. 1 second. Any questions, commissioners? All right. I think, thank you very much. Is there anything else, Mr. Kodadati, you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank you again, all of you, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to assume that Mr. Kang and Mr. Doss do not need to provide additional comments. With that, we will then go to public comment. A little different way that we're going to do it tonight. For anybody that's here that isn't the one card I have here, you will need to fill out a speaker card if you'd like to say anything about the project under consideration. We have this one speaker card for the moment. That speaker will be given 5 minutes. Now, this is going to be a little strange in that the speaker is actually on the phone, and he's watching on TV. So please, speaker, say your name, city of residence, and then you will have 5 minutes to provide your comments, and then hang on to see whether or not there's any commissioners that have questions that you can then answer as part of that process. So, Mr. Kearns, can you pipe him in? The speaker is Anthony Stearns.
Hello. I am the owner of the North property, and I just wanted to call in and say that Mr. Contreras actually addressed many of my questions, which a lot of it had to do with, since it is in essence a flag lot, the separation of property and how that might be handled. But then I've also brought up to him about if there was any thought to shifting the property closer to LeCam to minimize some of the visual impact, as well as if there was any thought whatsoever to have this as a proposed single-story residence. I'm just curious if there was any thought to that. Also for visual impact, not only from my property, because I sit way down right in front of him, and I have a very steep hill up, and I think I was told that this property would be about another 40 or 50 feet above my property and only a short distance away. And also the visual impact that I know the top of my house, like my roof, I could see even just from the 101 grade coming down. So I didn't know if there was any type of visual impact with this proposal. And that really was my only questions on this.
Okay, Mr. Stearns, hold on a second and see if there's any questions from the commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Stearns. There's no questions. We will follow up with staff with regard to your comments, and thank you for phoning in. With that, we'll go back to staff for further comments.
In response to the adjacent property owner's questions, if the proposed residence was located any closer to LeCam Road, it would be more visible from surrounding adjacent properties. Again, the reason why the applicant is proposing the residence along the western portion of the site is to place the building in alignment with the existing development pattern in LeCam Road, provide for an increased setback from LeCam Road, and be screened by the mature landscaping that's along the property line there between the two properties. Also to limit the amount of grading that would go into natural sloping terrain. If we move this building further to the south on the ascending slope, it would require more cut, more grading, and it would be sitting at a higher elevation on the slope and thus more visible to surrounding properties. Another reason why staff agreed with this location of the residence is because that area there was previously disturbed by fuel modification for the existing residents. So again, based on these considerations, staff feels that this is the appropriate location for the proposed residence, and as designed, staff supports the project.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. Any further questions, commissioners? I had a brief one. What is the setback requirement in this area, just generally speaking?
The required setback from that property line is a minimum of 20 feet. However, the applicant is providing and exceeding that, going up to 50 feet, 49 feet setback.
And it sounds like you're saying that if they pushed it farther south, it would go higher up on the ridge line and would actually probably violate some of our ridge line rules.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, Mr. Kodadati, you have 5 minutes rebuttal if you would like. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but it's your opportunity to the extent you want to add anything else. And thanks for bringing your kids and letting them watch the process in action. Oh, hold a second. Let it kick in. Go for it.
Just have a quick comment. Mr. Stearns is my property on the north side. And when he purchased the property a couple of years ago, I took the time to go and meet with him and saw him and his kids. And I just wanted to address any issues that he had. And yes, this issue came up at that point, and the only concern he had was he wanted to make sure that when he looks up, he can minimally see the new residence. So we do have a lot of oak trees right now that have grown over the years between his house and the proposed building. And I also assured him that with new landscaping, we're going to make sure that we're going to have some tall hedges to visually block any openings between those trees to make sure that, he will have a complete block of the house that's sitting up on the hill. So I just wanted to let you know that that was addressed, and I did, assured him that that will be done when the actual landscape design is going to go in effect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any questions, commissioners? Okay. With that, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'm open to commissioner comments or a motion. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes. Thank you, Doctor, for your presentation and your family being here tonight. I do agree that the process has been long for you. I've seen the timeline presented here, and I appreciate you going back and forth with redesigning this project and meeting the specifications of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. I think it's a beautifully designed project, and in regards to the conditions that are set forth and you adhering to them, I make a motion to approve this project.
I'm assuming he needs a little bit more words.
Yes, and I have the numbers here.
I think on the recommendation part.
Recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving precise plan 2013-70085, Oak Tree Permit 2013-70276, Landmark Tree Permit 2014-70170, and Underground Utility Waiver 2020-70076, based on the findings and subject to the conditions described therein.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Commissioner McMahon?
I just wanted to say that I appreciate how far you've gone to accommodate the staff's request, accommodate the natural beauty of the land, Casca, and everything that you've done. It sounds like you've really got the right attitude about where you put the house and how you do it, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Newman, any comments?
Yes, I'll support this measure. I want to thank you for revising the plan not to remove any of the landmark trees. You've got a lot of them, protected trees on your property. And I'm satisfied that the revision greatly minimizes the impact on the protected trees you have on the property. At the same time, I also want to thank your neighbor, Mr. Stearns, for calling in under difficult circumstances. I appreciate your willingness to work with him. And I appreciate very much your statement that landscaping could be added to, in your words, form a complete block. So there would be minimal or no visual impact for your neighbor. I can certainly appreciate both sides of both views here. So I'm glad that you're coming to a neighborly accommodation. And with that, I will support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Lastly, for me, I would say that the great thing, and again, I'm going to praise city staff, shockingly, because they do a fantastic job. The process you have gone through to get everything dealt with is painstaking, we know. It's tough, but they make it tough because they make sure that all the rules are complied with. I know the only reason you're here really is one issue that ultimately needed our review, but as you can see, we looked at everything, and again, thank you, staff, for going through and detailing lots of issues. And Mr. Stearns, again, I think we are appreciative of your concerns. I think that's why the staff wrote into the report a lot of discretion in terms of dealing with a lot of issues. Also, again, the concerns with regard to ridge lines and other things are tough, but again, we have to find an accommodation. I think this is the best accommodation we can find, and I wish you the best with your beautiful home for your beautiful family. So with that, let's go ahead and prepare for a vote.
And Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Is that a yes on the vote?
Yes, yes on the vote.
Motion carries 4-0. Commissioner Buss absent.
And as this is a determination, we have an appeal period. Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. Thank you. Item 8, department reports.
There are none this evening.
And now we get to my favorite part, item 9, Commissioner comments and AB 1234 reports. Commissioner Cohen, did you go and do some interesting?
Yes, we had the pleasure of attending the Planning Commission conference in Sacramento. We had over 400 planning commissioners, I believe, there in attendance all across California. We learned about the new state legislation, CEQA design guidelines, affordable housing issues. It was very informative. The event lasted about 3 days overall, and look forward to discussing more in detail with the rest of the staff of what I've learned from the trip.
Sounds good. Commissioner McMahon, did you learn anything else?
Yes, I also did attend the conference. I did learn a lot. Also, it was especially nice to talk to other commissioners in other areas, find out what their issues were and how they were handling them. I also got to check in with our Assemblywoman Jackie Irwin, which was nice too. It was a very, very nice time up there. Very educational.
Thousand Oaks, you're very lucky to have a good group of commissioners that take the time to go to these conferences to learn new things going on and care about the city and want to make sure that we're doing all we can to make Thousand Oaks the best it can be. So thanks for going to that. Any other commissioner comments? With that, we'll go to the staff update. Are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues? Mr. Kearns?
There are no announcements this evening. The next, jump to item B, the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for March 30th. That meeting currently has no items slated for it and will likely be canceled. So that would make April 6th the next Planning Commission meeting, which is shaping up now.
Therefore, we'll go ahead and adjourn to April 6th, 2020. Good night, Thousand Oaks.